All right, welcome back to the IMNerd Podcast, guys. I'm your host, Freyway, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
And today we have one of my absolute favorite players. We have the God of Frogs. This would be the Jiraiya to my Naruto. This is literally the guy who honestly inspired me to play the deck that I've been essentially getting a lot of success with this year. We have Roghnach on the podcast today. Rownok, why don't you say your name and introduce yourself a little bit, because your name is one of the most commonly mispronounced things in Edison lore.
That's funny, yeah. Yeah, it's pronounced Roghnach. So think of the word like round.
Yep.
So that way.
And I've learned it has nothing to do with frogs or monarchs, as many people believe.
Yeah, some people think your name is like Roghnach or some shit. Like they make this combination of frog monarch up, which I get it, but that's just not your name at all. Also, what does your name actually mean? Does it have a meaning?
It does. Yeah, it actually has a little bit of a story behind it if you want to hear that. I guess.
Well, we're here for the podcast. We're going to do a lot. So why don't you get right into it? I'm down for it.
Yeah, well, that's basically when I was in my funny Facebook phase and just memeing about on the internet and finding all the funny things I could do on Facebook. I thought it'd be really cool just to have like a weird middle name, because I saw on Facebook like people would have really strange middle names that, like, especially if they're running meme pages and stuff, they had them. So I figured that'd be a cool idea. So I was trying to think of what middle name to add, and I didn't want to add my real middle name.
Yeah.
So I was just staring at the screen trying to think of one, and in the little box where it lets you input your middle name, it said optional. I was like, okay, it's gonna be optional then.
Oh wait, optional is what that translates to?
That's right.
Oh shit.
So, yeah,
So-
in Irish, by the way.
I
I'm
was
from
about
Ireland.
That's what I was about to say. So you're from Europe. You're from Ireland specifically. So you're an Irishman. And what can you tell us about life in Europe and in Ireland, I guess specifically? What can you tell us about that?
It's great, honestly. I love just like being able to travel everywhere. And I mean, where I live right now, like I'm in my own apartment, and I'm just, getting started in my life. I'm a teacher.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? You just said you're just getting started with your life.
Yeah, well, I suppose just getting started, but I mean, I've been in a few places, been doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I'm 28 right now.
Okay.
It's my birthday last week.
So you're still relatively young compared to me and Kenny. We're old men at this point, but
Not by much, Fraser. Jesus Christ.
No, he could be our younger brother at this point. Let's be honest here. Roghnach is quite a bit younger now. I feel like I'm far removed from the 20s at this point. So, okay, so you live in Ireland. I only know very few things about Irish people, or just in general Ireland, and that's probably all the things that the media puts out there, like potatoes, luckily Irish, stuff like that, like leprechauns, just the most stereotypical Conor McGregor and that walk that he does. Also, what's the Irish potatoes? People love those things. And drinking. So you mentioned that during this podcast you wanted to get your absinthe or whatever it's called, just to get ready. And I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of having a drink, when I do some social event. So I assume that you also like to partake.
That's true. The rumor is accurate. Absolutely.
Okay, that's good. No, I'm glad to hear it. I like tequila. I don't know what is your favorite, drink of choice or whatever?
Me or Kenny?
Oh, you.
You.
Me? Oh, yeah, me. It's absinthe. Yeah, I have some right here, actually.
Okay.
And it's something I discovered when I was in my Erasmus year in Spain. They used to give us these shots for €1 each.
Damn.
Which for you guys is about $1.
Yes.
And I wouldn't say hooked on them, but every night we went out, I would just take maybe 2, maybe 3 of these. That's all you need for the whole night.
Oh, so
is
it's
it true?
strong.
Is it true that every bar in Ireland toasted and celebrated when the Queen died?
Well, I don't know. Not quite so much. The cool thing, though, I don't know if you follow the football team called Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I know about them. I don't follow football,
when you say football, you're talking about soccer, right?
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You call it soccer. Yeah.
We call it soccer, but I knew what you meant because you're from Europe, so immediately my brain made the connection.
I've got Portuguese family, so.
So what were you saying about the Celtics?
Well, yeah. So when that happened, they chanted in the stadium, "In a box, Lizzie's in a box."
Oh shit.
I mean, sometimes when it comes to politics and it's the voice of the people,
awesome.
You just can't stop them. You just gotta.
That's awesome.
You just gotta let them chant. That's it.
I want to be honest. I don't understand why Americans are so obsessed with the Queen and the royal
monarchy,
family.
Yeah.
Like over here in America, for whatever reason, everything they do becomes news, and I don't really understand why. Because they don't have any effect on our lives at all. But
You're very
yeah,
right,
but I
Kenan.
thought it was awesome. I know at least here, I work in a bar, and all of the Irish people that came to the bar that day were very happy.
What I will say is that I feel like a lot of Americans are obsessed with celebrities in general. And the monarchy, especially the queen, her being 95 when she died, I think, something like that. The monarchy is just the highest form of celebrity in a way. Like, it's an actual queen. And then Princess Diana, I know, was super loved in our country. And I'm not quite
Even
sure.
in Ireland, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and she's quite, I mean, she was loved around the world from what I gather, but she was very loved in America, and I think it's because of her being like a martyr in a way and someone who spoke out against the monarchy. You know, she wasn't afraid to just say it how it is. I watch a lot of that show The Crown on Netflix. It's actually one of my top 10 shows of all time. And it's very fucking good. Now, obviously, it's dramatized, so it's not 100% factual, but the later seasons, they've been showing the relationship between Princess Di and the royal family and how strained it was. And I find that stuff to be very interesting. I'm not crazy about it to the point where I'm following everything going on with Harry and Meghan Markle and all that stuff, but I think the history of the royal family in terms of just what happened with Princess Diana, that whole scandal, the theories that she may have been killed and all that stuff, I find that all very interesting, and I love watching the show. I recommend it to anyone listening. If you haven't seen The Crown, if you don't like slow burns or shows that are very driven by story and character development, it's not for you. The show doesn't really have action per se. Like, it's not a lot of action in it, but it is a very well written show, and the subtext and the dialogue is some of the best I've ever seen, and it's won a lot of awards for being just a phenomenal show. But yeah, okay.
I definitely learned a lot from it, for sure.
Same.
I didn't know a lot about the actual history of how Charles was cheating on Diana and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that either. I had no idea. And he's actually right now, so now he's the king, and he's married to his mistress that he was cheating on Princess Diana with back in the day. I find that to be absurd, okay? Like, hoes are out here winning. Hoes are winning. She is the queen consort, I think that's what they call it. So she is, married to the king, and she was his mistress while he was married. I think that's just wild. That is one of the biggest scandals in all of history. And yeah, that's a very real thing that's happening right now. So I know we got completely sidetracked with this whole talk about, but this is some Europe history. So if you're listening to this, you're getting a European history lesson right now. Anyways, so what we're really here for, though, is you are the guy responsible for putting frogs really on the map in Edison format, especially. I know that there's other people like Frog Slicer, who also is known for playing the combo version of the deck that essentially aims to beat you in 1 or 2 turns. But as far as the dueling versions of the Frog deck, I would say that it definitely goes to you, who's the progenitor of all of that. And I just want to know, how did you stumble upon the Frog deck, and like, why do you love it so much?
I was talking to Cam about this this week, actually, because he got sacked by a virus deck, and it had like Active main and Eradicator main, and he's like, "Oh, I got Dust Shoot turn 1, and I just lost." And I'm like, "Oh," he's like, "Oh, I hate frogs. I'm never gonna play it again." And he's like, "Why do you even like frogs?" Yeah, that's so Cam, right? But then it got me thinking, yeah, like, why do I like frogs that much? And I think we narrowed it down to a few points, which was I like the grind game.
Yep.
Actually, we were talking about just off stream there, our favorite starters, and I was definitely going to tell you about Chikorita, because Leech Seed is my favorite move.
In all the Pokemon?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I like Leech Seed as well.
Leech Seed with like Poison Powder or Toxic, it's a really fun strategy to rock out with.
It's exactly my kind of thing. Yeah. If you think about it, that's kind of very analogous to how frogs work in Edison, that every single turn you get something back just for free.
Mm-hmm. And you chip away.
Kind of get to grind out that way.
Yeah. So is that so that's like your main thing, is that you like the grind game, and that's why frogs are pretty much your favorite deck?
There's a few, there's other reasons beyond that, yeah. So it's like kind of related to that, is that I like the dynamic of the movable object, which is the frogs, versus the unstoppable force, which is, especially now with like the really fast meta, you really just have to like withstand everything turn after turn.
You do, yeah.
Really grind it out. And also, I just like little monsters, like little small. I like the idea that the small guys can just grind out the big guys like turn after turn.
Yeah.
So in modern format, one of my main favorite decks used to be Ghost Tricks. To be known for that.
Yes, I could see that. I could totally see being a Ghost Trick player. That's a deck that, for people who don't know anything about, it's not even modern anymore, but who don't know anything about Ghost Tricks, they're a deck that relies on set monsters, and they can set your opponent's monsters. They set themselves. They special summon themselves face down. They do a lot of tricking with playing with positions face up and face down and stuff like that. So that's like their whole mechanic, but they're small, and that's what your point is.
they grind like crazy. There used to be a loop with Ghost Trick Angel, which searched the spells and traps. You search for Ghost Trick Break, which is the one that when Ghost Trick's destroyed, you special summon 2 back. You could special back the Dullahan or the Alucard, which then loops back the Break. It loops over and over. So it was a perfect grind deck.
Oh yeah, Alucard. That was the rank 3 Xyz monster that everyone basically hoarded out because he was just so good. He popped set cards on the field, and he was like 1800 attack, I think, something like that. But
the really cool thing about using that in a like hat format, for example, right? Because you can actually use Ghost Tricks in hat format. So everyone knows Alucard, then they just have never read Alucard that much that they always forget the first effect.
Which is...
See, exactly.
It's like I'm a meta player, so I used him only for popping set cards. I couldn't tell you what Alucard does outside of that.
Exactly. I've won so many games in hat just because of that, and that's pretty much it. Actually, just catching them off guard. It protects your set monsters and your Ghost Tricks.
Really? So, in what way? Like they can't be destroyed by battle or card effects or something?
So you have to attack Alucard.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea he did that. Like, if you gun to my head and gave me 20 minutes to think of what he does outside of just popping set cards, I would assume that he does a scrap dragon like thing when he's destroyed, summon a Ghost Trick monster from your graveyard or something like that. Like that's what I would assume.
Because, yeah, he recycles the Ghost Trick card. It's really important to Ghost Tricks, actually.
Yeah, that's what wait, does he do that? I was just kidding.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah, very similar, yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I was just making up.
Almost spot on.
I thought I was making up an effect. So he has 3 effects. He pops face downs.
Yeah, 3.
You have to attack him, and so he is relatively more modern than I thought. Yeah, that's actually wild. So okay, back to frogs though, because again, you're the frog guru. I wonder, have you played any other decks in Edison? Because I personally have never seen you play anything that's not frog related, and I'm just curious if you've ever even tried something else, or did you just love at first sight? I found the frog deck, and there's 100 different variations of frogs, so I never felt the need to change.
Kind of both of those, yeah. Like especially even today, like I was testing like 5 new variants that I thought of today, and like just having fun with it. Like it's a never-ending source of magical new things.
So wait, it was love at first sight for you?
5 is so many for you to say new variants.
Yes, 5 is a lot.
It's kind of variations on old ideas, but bringing in new archetypes, bringing in new engines, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
always need to be best.
5 is a lot. Who do you do you have a testing? Because we're on the same team now. For people who don't know, and I know a lot of people actually do not know this, I'm on a team called Ring of Destruction that you're the captain of, right? Are you the captain?
That's right.
Okay, you are our team captain, and I am fully a part of Ring of Destruction. We have our own Discord server. You guys are in the War League. I'm there just to kind of cheer you guys on and give my 2 cents where needed. But usually you guys can handle it because you're all very good players, which is one of the reasons why I joined the team. But when you want to test out frog variations, like you said, do you just play DB randos or do you play team members?
Mostly just DB randoms or FL ladder, because I just find like I just want to get as much testing as I can in a really short amount of time, just to get kind of like an aggregate sense of how the deck works, what kind of interactions it has, what kind of things really take it down, because you end up playing on DB versus like 20 different kinds of decks, and that really shows you on a wide scale the kinds of weaknesses that deck might have.
Right. No, that's real. And I think that the idea of using the ladder to test is a good idea, because I play against DB randos for content, but I think that it's only good for content. Rarely do I actually find myself improving. I will say this. I don't want to completely discredit DB randos because I do learn random shit that may be applicable in tournaments, but for the most part, it's like, they're going to do something ridiculous, or they're playing a deck that I'll never play in tournament, stuff like that. And it does make for interesting content, but as far as getting better as a player, I do think that the ladder is better, of course. And then if you have a strong testing partner, that's always a good thing too. Like I know Stengo and the True Hero, they play each other fucking day in and day out, going back and forth with different decks and all types of stuff. And so, as you see now, Cairo is one of the best players in Edison format, and that's because he plays a lot. He works really hard at it, and so that helps a lot. But I think that I've seen you playing a lot on DB. Like when I just go to the unlimited unrated section and go to watch, I just see you blatantly, no watch password or anything, just playing people.
Yeah, honestly, like it doesn't even matter if you have a watch password. Like people can scout all they want and they still won't figure it out.
Correct. I learned that too. I think I kind of got that from you. I was like, yo, this guy plays frogs. This is before I was on your team and really knew you like that. I was like, this guy plays frogs, and he basically changes his deck every event and tops. And I don't think he really cares if people like figure out stuff about the deck, because one, you change it so often. Your deck pretty much changes every event. Like, or at least once you top with something, it's like you I won't say abandon it, but you have a Dexter's Lab thing where Dexter is a cartoon where he's a scientist and he makes these crazy inventions. And he loves them. When he first makes them, he's in love with it. He won't abandon it. It's like his favorite new thing, right? But then after he gets kind of bored with it a little bit, he switches to a new invention and then he completely discards the old one and only cares about the new shiny toy. And I think I have this issue with a lot of things in life. I won't get too in detail with that right now. I did mention on a podcast before, though. It's a problem that I think I genuinely have. But you have this thing where I feel like you top with a frog deck. Like you last year, you and Cam topped with the Frog Hero deck. You guys made that build with like 6 hand traps, not hand traps, 6 discard traps and stuff like that. And then I haven't seen you play that deck, that specific version of the deck since, although I've seen you play other versions of Hero Frogs that play like Polymerization and King of the Swamp and Woodsman, innovating stuff that I never even, some cards I never even knew existed, like Inverse Universe or whatever it's called.
Love that variant.
Yes. So you invent a lot of different frog variants, and that's pretty much what's made me such a fan of you. But like, how do you come up with some of that stuff? Like what even happens in your brain that makes you say, I want to try this out, and you refine it to a point where it can top a real tournament?
Basically is the fact that it's just even possible in itself. Is like, other people just look at these random cards and they don't have that wide knowledge of the card pool.
Mm-hmm.
Like me, I've probably looked over every single card like 50, 100 times. Like, I don't know, like I just understand how these cards work in interactions with each other. The fact that I have just like played, I don't know, like tens of thousands, but probably of games on TV.
You have.
I just kind of, if I look at a card like say Black Garden, like I'll just automatically know off the top of my head like 20 good cards that work with Black Garden. So that makes it a lot quicker for me to make these connections between cards that might be in a certain variant.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that, yeah, like I said, like I have up with random stuff in the past, so I know that it's possible. So why not just give it a shot and see if it does well? Like Burn Frog, for example, even because I think you know the story about this. Like I just kind of made it on the spot for a teammate.
Yeah. And then you got third at the RBET, right? The first one of this year. Yeah, that's crazy.
But in order to do that, like I had like a list of deck list basically on DB. Like I just had it as a draft there to add to whenever I felt like it. Cards that would be good for a potential Burn Frog variant if I ever were to make it. I just would add like these random cards that do damage, these random like tribute monsters that have a burn effect or something, or these traps that might also have some synergy with like the frogs themselves, that kind of thing. And eventually that it was so much of a critical mass of it that I was like, all right, fair. Like no one's ever compiled this list before. No one's ever thought to make these connections. So like if it's not me that does it, then who else is going to do it? And it's kind of the same for any build or any deck that I'm going to invent in the future. Like I might as well just invent them, because obviously I'm going to have the element of surprise, me personally. If I don't make it, no one's going to make it, probably anyway. And like, what a waste that would be for me to just use the same deck over and over.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that you're one of those people who enjoys deck building, and you're good at it. Very clearly, you're very good at deck building, at least from a frog standpoint, because I mean, that's what that's your area of expertise. And I just love that you've shown that the engine can be so splashable in a way. Like it can just mold to any strategy you want. Because the Burn Frog deck for me, that was revolutionary to me. I've never seen a deck like that before in my life, like ever. I've never seen anything quite like that. And Turbo Rocket, a card that I've seen for years and years and years, I'd never thought that it would be playable in the way that it was playable in that deck. And then watching some of your matches on stream and seeing you Magic Cylinder somebody when they attack with like a lava golem or whatever that you gave them is just ridiculous. It's just so like there's so many things that are just, it almost seemed like a circus. It's like, this is a joke, but then it's winning, and it's not even winning by a little bit. It's stomping. It's just crazy. And then I think you were set to win that whole tournament, but then obviously we always say you need luck to win. And at some point luck does run out and you can just get unlucky. You don't draw your Treeborn Frog until it's too late, stuff like that. You know how it is. I'm a frog player too now. But yeah, I think your innovations are just the coolest thing ever. Like the Burn Frog deck, Hero Frogs, even the one with Woodsman. I've been meaning to try that out too. I want to try that version with Wabaku's Threatening Roars and Woodsman and Polymerization, because I just think that's so interesting.
If you do, I actually have an update for that deck that would be really good. And I would give that to you personally if you wanted to try it and be the first. How
about this? I'll do you one better. Me and you can just do an episode on my YouTube channel together where we just play it against people.
Sure.
And try it out that way. Yeah, because that is honestly the best way to do it. But yeah, I really love so many of your lists. I've been trying my hardest to make the fairy frog list work because I love the idea of it. But I'm finding that one is very, very difficult. And I've seen you get very far with it as well. I believe at one point you were even 5-0 with that deck in a tournament, and I've seen you get deck devastated for literally 8 to 9 cards. And now multiple times I've seen that happen where like you're playing like some variant of fairy frogs and you just get deck devastated and literally lose like everything. And it's just so crazy because if that doesn't happen in either one of those tournaments, I feel like you top and then everyone knows about that deck and it's another frog variant to add to the list. But something keeps stopping that one from happening. I don't know what it is. The Yugi gods do not want fairy frogs to top.
That's right. It was actually 3. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. 3 tournaments in a row. Big deck dev. So, oh well.
Yeah, literally deck dev.
Game 1.
It's crazy. And I remember the one I saw was at Deck Devastators. It was a Deck Devastators tournament. And I said, this tournament is living up to the namesake, right? Because I just watched somebody get devastated for 8 cards in one turn. And then, I mean, you were obviously stomping hard as hell that game. And it's like, oh, Deck Devastation. Right. And then you even had My Body as a Shield. And he had Solemn. And I was like, yo, that's so insane. Like, if he doesn't have Solemn Judgment there, that doesn't happen. You just probably win. But yeah, crazy. I love that deck so much. I want it to work. I've even made my own fake versions of it on YouTube and stuff and played it. So if you guys haven't seen that, check it out. But yeah, you're amazing when it comes to frogs, and just I think your technical play is also up there too. I review a lot of your replays, which is one of the reasons why I do think that I've gotten a lot better at Edison format and just playing the frog deck, is because I love the fact that you are willing to share a lot of your knowledge in the Edison format frog channel. At least that's the one where I frequent that channel more than any other. But when I go in there, I've seen your replays posted from when you've won tournaments. I've seen your replays posted from when you've topped tournaments. And I literally sit there and go through every single one play by play to see every single thing that you do. And I've learned so much because of that. Like, I've learned the Unifrog, Duke Frog stuff that you do. I've seen flip-flop frog interactions. I've seen all kinds of cool stuff with Swap Frog bouncing, Treeborn to use for discard traps. Like, I've learned a lot of moves, for lack of a better word, by watching what you do and just kind of Sharinganing them. And I think it's amazing. But how did you develop that technical play? Like, what is it about it that, you know?
It kind of is. It comes down as well to just playing over and over and over again on Dueling Book. Because if you play 100 games, eventually you get to these random game states where like you just for some reason have to use a Swap Frog effect to send your Dupe Frog from the field to the graveyard, and then get the thing back from the graveyard and bounce the Swap Frog and do these random moves that you would never have to do.
Yeah.
In normal circumstances. And what you find after you've done those a couple times is that, oh my god, these actually do come up in normal circumstances more than I thought.
Right.
Because I wasn't even aware it was possible.
No, that's actually true. The one that I just had happen to me at Nationals was Swap Frog, Brain Control, Miracle Fusion, and the guy had Fossil Dyna. And I could go summon Swap Frog, Brain Control your Fossil Dyna, use Swap Frog to bounce Fossil Dyna to your hand, and play Miracle Fusion attack for game. That is something that is so crazy because I've never really had to do that before, but now that I've seen it and thought about it after the fact, I'm like, holy shit, that probably does come up a lot more than I think. You know, like it comes up a lot more than you think. And yeah, it just changes the way you look at everything. Frogs is such a complex deck. So it has a very low floor. Like the entry level to frogs is, most people think it's just bring back Treeborn Frog, tribute for Monarch, win the game. That's what 90% of players who play Edison think that the frog deck is doing. They think like, oh, you're just summoning a Monarch every turn. And that's just not true, right? Like if you're a high level frog player, you know that's just not true. There's a lot more happening. And there's also knowing the correct time to drop a Monarch, the correct time to do other things, to be patient, I've learned is a really big deal. And also just trusting your deck and trusting your technical play to do these weird, obscure things that confuse your opponent and then they misplay because they don't really know what's happening. Like I found that a lot of people just don't know how frogs work, even though it's an S tier deck and one of the best decks in the format. Even some of the best players in the format don't know how frogs work completely still. Like they still do things like try to attack, you know, my Dupe Frog when I have Substitute out. And it's like, that doesn't work, but okay, you can attack. I just won't die in battle. So I've had it all happen. I've experienced pretty much a lot of I'm like, damn, I thought this guy, not that they're bad, but I thought this guy was like really, really good and on top of their stuff. And then they just do something that I'm like, oh, well, you actually don't know what you're doing.
And you can never know either. Like, honestly, I'd say nowadays about a third of players kind of are familiar with those interactions, maybe. Back when I started, oh my God, it was like 5%. It was so easy to win with frogs back then when I started Edison.
Yeah, I do think it's getting a little harder over time. And I think that's just the natural progression of any format that is locked like this one, where people do eventually start to catch on, or more people do. So yeah, the percentage of players who know how to play against frogs has grown for sure. But we still get Yes, major tournaments for sure, but we still get free wins here and there, which is nice. Like some of the either new entrants to the format or people who are less experienced in that particular matchup. Some people just hate the matchup. Like I know even Roghnach, who's ranked like #1 in Edison, he fucking hates frogs. He hates it, and he makes that very known.
He hates it so much he's going to join it. Feed him to join him.
I know. I saw that recently. I was like, oh god, this is gonna be bad. Like Roghnach is gonna be playing frog soon, and yeah. But everyone beware, because he's obviously one of the better players in the format, and he's been playing like Hero Beat and Black Wings and Value Turbo and all those other decks, and he's been dreading the idea of frogs, but now he's joining the team because it's so good. It's such a good deck, and if you're a good player, it rewards you a lot for playing well.
Yeah, and that's part of the fun. That's why I keep coming back, because I always discover something new. Well, not always, but eventually I do.
Yeah.
Even after all these years.
So you've been on Mausoleum Frogs for a while. Can you tell us why you love that deck so much? Because it is cool that you play like Light and Darkness Dragon, Ancient Gilgatron Dragon. It's weird because field spells conflict with Treeborn Frog. So when you look at it on paper, it's like, how the fuck does this work? But I've seen you play it. I've seen you win a Switch with it in California. But yeah, why do you like that deck so much? Like, what was your reasoning for playing that at serious tournaments?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to how I mentioned in Keegan's video. It's like it's just the fact that, even like you said, right? So it conflicts with Treeborn, right?
Yep.
But that's kind of for a reason, which is that you're trying to play without Treeborn as much as possible. Because a lot of things these days like are designed to keep you off Treeborn, whether that be Kaiku, Soul Release, Crow, Dyna, Vanity's Fiend, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think this is something you said yourself, like what modern decks are trying to do in Edison is to create as many non-games as possible. So especially post-side against frogs, like the non-game comes when you just drop a Dyna or a Vanity's Fiend on them and they don't have the magical out. So that was a non-game. So I'm trying to avoid those as much as possible. I'm trying to just say, like, if you have bog standard anti-frog hate stuff, then I'm prepared for that, and I'm just gonna steamroll right over that anyway. I don't care, because I don't need Treeborn. Treeborn's like a bonus extra that I can use if I want.
Right.
But I don't have to. So it's kind of like a dual thing. And yeah, that's the basic concepts of it. And it's got like obviously like a higher ceiling with the Gear Towns, and Gajiltron plus Light and Darkness combo is really crazy, and that can steal a lot of games. So that also creates non-games in my favor, which is great, because typically in frogs you don't get to do that a whole lot.
Yeah, frogs, outside of opening 1-for-1 Junk Synchron and a thing that it can bring back, I find myself not having many non-games with that deck. It's a very much so dueling deck.
Yes.
So
that leaves you open to a lot of variants, you know?
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I want to say is that it reminds me a lot of the Hero Frog deck in the sense that Gear Town is an extender, which is something that frogs desperately need and people don't understand. So the most basic version of frogs is the Monarch version that just plays literally like 12 Monarchs, and then just triple Soul Exchange, triple Econ, and then all your standard frogs. And it's just going for every turn. I just want to summon a Monarch, and that's all I'm going to do. And if you stop that play, I'm literally going to pass my turn because I don't have anything else to do outside of summoning a Monarch. Like if you stop that, I'm literally passing. And then you have Hero Frogs, which says, okay, it can do the Monarch train thing and Monarch every turn. And if you stop that, you might get Miracle Fusioned. And then in other scenarios, you might get Monarch and Miracle Fusion in the same turn, and you didn't stop either one of them, in which case you're dead. So that deck is very powerful. It's one of the best decks in the format because it has that extender, and that extender being Absolute Zero is ridiculous because he's like one of the best monsters in the entire Edison. And people are realizing it this year that Absolute Zero is like not okay. Miracle Fusion is not okay. Avakara is probably the best top deck in the whole format, all that good stuff. But the Gear Town build also has a spell card that's an extender, and it can come out of nowhere because your opponent is like, you go Tribute for Caius and they go Solemn. And that's like usually that's a really good answer to the Monarch deck. That's one of the cards that Monarchs don't want to see because it actually is pulling the rug for all intents and purposes. It just like ends the turn. But when you're like, all right, activate Terraforming, set this Gear Town, then set something over it and get a 3000 guy out that can't be killed by Deep Prison, which is the most popular card in the format, I think. Like it's actually #1. At least in a couple tournaments where Format Library shows the stats at the bottom, it's literally #1 in a lot of tournaments as the most played card. So Deep Prison can be used on it. And a lot of times people just get caught off guard and get attacked for 3000 after something like a Solemn or something like stopping a Monarch, thinking that the turn was over and you just summon this big ass monster. I love that about it. I'm basically just praising the fact that it has an extender, and I feel like I don't really want to play a frog deck that doesn't have some kind of, after the Monarch play goes through or gets stopped, what can they do in the same turn after that? Like that's kind of where my brain has been lately. because of you.
Interesting. Yeah. But you have had success with the basic Frog Monarch deck, though, with
I
the
do.
Thescalers and stuff like that.
I actually jump back and forth all the time between those two for every tournament because here's what happens. If I play Hero Frogs, the people want to play Royal Oppression more. And people feel like, oh, well, this deck is weaker to oppression, which is true. Like it is. I'm only playing 4 monarchs in that deck. And that's a very low monarch count, almost to the point where I really wouldn't even call it a monarch deck. Like, right? It's really just, it is really Hero Frogs. It's not Hero Frog Monarch. And even that one Rises that I play, I could cut that for another card if I'm being completely honest. So it is mostly a frog and hero deck than anything else, but it is weak to oppression because it plays a lot of special summoning. On the other side, if you play oppression and I play against things like Value Turbo more often, that deck gets destroyed by straight up frog monarchs. The 12 monarch soul exchange triple, that shit rips through hamsters and Rykos and those boards that have like Greffer and Armwing and all that. Like they get ruined by just going soul exchange, Greffer, Rise back your Armwing. So now it's not in the graveyard. It's just kind of like backing your extra deck, which is the worst place for it to be because you can't use Burial. You can't use it for value later. That build just shits on the oppression decks. And in general, oppression is not even good against it. So much so that when I played that deck and had success with it, I remember playing against Blackwings. In turn 1, I got him to flip oppression and I never got rid of it. And despite the fact that I kept summoning monarchs that could target it, I just kept targeting other cards. And eventually he lost because he had a blizzard that he couldn't use because he had oppression up. And I was like, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. I wanted you to have this oppression face up that hurts you more than it hurts me. Like you flipped it because I went special summon Swap Frog or something. I might have gone summon Substitute and used the effects. I did something. And he obviously used oppression. I was like, perfect, pass. Next turn, Monarch you, then Monarch you again, then Monarch you again, because I'm playing fucking 13 or 14 of them. And the oppression just stayed. Then when the game ended, the oppression was still there. So I like switching between the oppression resilient deck and then the one that gets oppression really hard because people go back and forth in the format, whether they play, oppression or not. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. I think that both decks have their place, even though one of them is extremely basic. And I do feel like the ceiling of it is very low. Like, I don't think that I'm some crazy player when I pick up the straight Monarch deck. Like, I don't think it takes that much skill, at least not as much as the other builds, but I do think that it has merit and still being a very scary S tier deck that can invalidate people. So that's like my rant on those 2.
I think it would have been a lot harder for you to get top 4 at the Nats event with just pure Roghnach.
I agree with that. I think that I OTK'd a couple people because of this hero version. I remember playing against Lysworn, and my opponent went Summon Lila Pass, and I just absolutely went crazy. I went like Summon Stratos, Search Ocean, Special Swap Frog, Discard Ocean, send Dupe Frog to grave, activate Miracle Fusion, like just straight attack, everybody attack, and your life points are really low in one turn. The next turn, like attack you again, and he just scooped. And that was round 1, game 1, just like that. Like he went Summon Lila, pass, and I was just like, oh, you're playing Lysworn. I'm not giving you any room to breathe. I'm all in. And against the mirror matches or decks that played heroes, I did a lot of Super Poly stuff. And I think that is stronger when you're also playing the heroes. Like, sure, you could play Super Poly in a raw Frog deck as well, Frog Monarchs, and it's fine, but you're relying on your opponent to have both the hero and the water usually. So it's not as good as having them yourself, because I've even used Super Poly to just, my 2 cards are being Super Poly right now for a full price absolute 0. And I've won last round of day 1 at Nationals. I won because I did that. Like I literally had to do that game 2. And I ended up 2-0ing the guy because he didn't have any water or heroes on the field. And I had Super Poly and I had like a Stratos and a Swap Frog. I was like, attack, Super Poly, make absolute 0, attack directly. It's like crazy. So so much damage.
Especially when you use your own absolute 0 as well to make it.
Yep.
And you nuke them on top of that.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
So good. But yeah, the standard Frog deck, I don't know if I would have gotten as far because I played against some people who did know what they were doing against Frogs for sure. I definitely had some things happen. And I was like, oh shit, this guy, he like passed his turn in a way where I was surprised because I thought maybe they bricked, but it's like, no, he's not committing cards to the field because he doesn't want to get monarched or whatever. And that, I started seeing that people are catching on. Like they're definitely getting smart, especially in person, which I usually rank as lower than online. Like most people in person are not as good as the online community just because you got everyone in the world online technically, whereas people, in person are just going to be usually in the area or people who are willing to travel. So very different communities. But yeah, I love every version of the Frog deck essentially. I've been dabbling with the Machina version. I know that you also, obviously that comes from me watching you play with it, but I love the idea of having the 3 Stratos in the deck with Gear Frame and all that. You haven't abandoned that deck, have you?
Not even yet, no. And honestly, that's probably going to come back at some point. But yeah, hashtag buy Sphere of Chaos. You need that for that.
Oh, yes. So, it's annoying because Sphere of Chaos, I see you talk about it a lot in the Frog channel. and I wanted to get in on that and buy some of them, but I went on TCG Player and I saw the price and I said, absolutely not. Like, I am good on that. So until Konami reprints it, I will be doing nothing with Spirit Chaos. I won't even make a deck on Dueling Book with Spirit Chaos because I don't want to get so involved with it that I like it because I don't have them. And I don't want to have to fork over whatever they cost now, which I think is upwards of like, I don't know, $20+ they are at this point. They might be more than that, actually. But yeah.
Right. And that's why it's so exciting to make a deck with it and just to watch people squirm and think like, oh my God, how far is it gonna go?
Yeah. You definitely have your hand in some market manipulation. Like when it comes to Edison format. Between Turbo Rocket, is that the synchro? Is Turbo Rocket the synchro?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So between
Turbo Cannon.
Turbo Cannon, yes.
Yeah.
Turbo Cannon, you made the price of that card go from literally nothing, like 10 cents, to several dollars. At its peak, it was literally like several dollars, which astronomical percentage increase when you consider that it was a 10-cent card before you topped this year with the Burn Frog deck. And then everyone was hyping it, including myself. I did a video with it immediately. I made a really funny thumbnail, which at the time I was like, I don't know if this guy thinks that I'm creepy or obsessed with him, because I was like, I like had you in the thumbnail, like it was basically Merrick who had Lava Golem chained up. And
yeah, that's true, actually. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I made a whole thumbnail before we ever talked. And I was like, I don't know if this guy's going to be like, who the fuck is this person making these like random storylines for me? But yeah, that was
exactly what I used to do, actually. On Facebook, I used to, whenever it was someone's birthday, I would go to their profile. I'd just take a random photo and I would Photoshop them in like with a pizza or like on top of a Lamborghini or something or anything like that. Yeah. But I'm down for that.
What is wrong with you? Okay, well, I'm glad to know. Yes, I'm glad to know that I didn't offend, because I was worried. I was like, man, what if he just looks at this as like, I think this guy is weird as hell. What is he doing? Why is he putting cat? Because I put like a chat bubble in the thumbnail and everything where it was like,
oh yeah,
the lava golem was in the cage all sad. I was like, can we get ice cream? And you were like, yeah, after you do my bidding or some shit. It was weird, but I thought it was funny when I made it. So me and Stango had a lot of fun.
I think it was to go on that. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to back up a little bit. How did you even get into Edison format specifically? Like, what happened? Because I don't really know your Yu-Gi-Oh origins. So maybe we should start with that. Maybe we should start with your Yu-Gi-Oh origin story. Like, how did you even get into that game? And then let's transition into how did you get into Edison?
Right. So I started very young on the playground, probably around 6 or 7, I think.
Oh my God.
Same as anyone else. And wanted to know what those cards were that people were throwing around. Got blown into the drains. People were like chewing on them and picking them in half and doing whatever, treating them like kids. But some of them, you know how it is. But some of the kids,
these Irish kids are wild.
I don't know. I suppose like there's a lot of wagers and stuff. Like people would be playing games, like games of football for your expensive cards, that kind of thing.
Oh shit!
But there's some people who took it a lot more seriously, and I used to go home and play all the cards with them, and they had massive collections and binders, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I used to get I remember actually one of my favorite things was, I don't know if you remember this, the Master Collection 1.
So what was in Master Collection 1? Because I remember the name, but I don't know what came in it.
Yeah, there's like some secret rares, and it was like some reprints of like Dark Spell Ruler. What else was in there? Like Labyrinth of Nightmare packs and stuff. But also it had like MC1, like Barrel Dragon Relinquished. What else was in there? I got MC2. MC2 was especially good. Like Master Collection 2, it had like BLS. It had Breaker the Magical Warrior secret rare. Lots of cool stuff like that. So that really expanded my collection. I opened some like really cool cards like Exodia Necros and stuff like that. So
I love that card as a kid. I love that card as a fucking kid, man.
So cool. Yeah. So then I ended up going to the locals, which was maybe about half an hour down the road from me, way in the what would you call it, like in the middle of nowhere in Ireland.
So real quick, how old were you when you went to locals?
It would have been, I want to say I was about 12, because it was Force of the Breaker sneak peek.
Okay. Because that always puts it in perspective for me. Just because I know, for me, I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Around 7th grade, but then I didn't go to locals for a good amount of time after that. Like over a year after learning about the game in general, that I learned that there were card stores where people just gathered to play Yu-Gi-Oh! So I was just wondering. But okay, so around 12-ish, you go to your locals down the road in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and I thought like, I never really understood that there was this serious game that people could actually play, as opposed to just throwing the cards around and like pretending you knew what the effects were and just normal summoning Trigodia or something with like no tributes.
Yeah.
So from that point on, I used to get these Yu-Gi-Oh magazines, and there was Beckett magazine, which is really cool.
I used to
There was
love Beckett.
Yu-Gi-Oh! World. Do you remember those ones?
Oh yeah.
I off the top of my head, I don't think I remember Yu-Gi-Oh! World magazine, but I know Beckett. I fucking used to love Beckett magazine.
Me and Kenny loved Beckett.
Okay.
I remember walking out of a store accidentally with Beckett still in my hand without paying for it because I was just staring at it so hard. I was with my grandmother in the supermarket and they just happened to have Beckett magazine in there, and I walked out reading it. No one said anything to me. Like no one ever came up to me. But that magazine, man, the covers every month changing the cover like that. Also looking at the prices of cards, which were incredibly inflated back then.
Yeah.
But Beckett was iconic. Like for Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, Beckett was iconic in getting players excited about the cards. Like it just made you excited to know, oh my god, I have Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8, and Beckett is telling me that it's $800. That's insane.
Jesus, yeah, jeez. And like, I remember the covers of the Beckett magazines was just so beautiful.
Yeah, some of them were holographic.
Lost.
Yes,
Remember?
like they were raised up off the actual cover. You could feel them. They were nice. Beckett was nice. Somebody should bring Beckett back, revive it.
We would buy it. No kidding. Like I would definitely buy it.
Yeah, as a collector's item now, I would hang Beckett magazines up in my room as like wallpaper, basically, or as decoration.
Oh yeah,
it would be.
So I still have the Rising magazine. That's the one I got. And so then from that point on, I started to take the game a bit more seriously. And I guess it was around that point that Edison format was happening. So I was kind of like in the know about at least the decks that were happening at the time. Now I was not like competing in tournaments or anything because it would have taken me like 2 hours to travel to Dublin, and then I didn't have the cards. I certainly couldn't afford like a top deck or anything. So I was just kind of interested in doing my own thing anyway. And I certainly didn't want to net deck anyone's deck because to this day I still don't think I have actually done that.
Oh, I could. You know what? That doesn't surprise me because you are again the guy known for frogs the most, basically, and all the decks that you play, I know that they come from you. Like when I saw you and Cam both top with the Frog Hero deck, I was like, well, this is really Rownok's deck. And like, you know, it's like I wouldn't attribute that to Cam, right? Like I would attribute that to you. And then every deck following that, I'm like, these are all your own innovative and, you know, your own inventions. They're not something that you got online and tweaked or anything like that. They're like, no, I made this deck basically from scratch. This is all my original idea. I am not such an innovator. I like seeing what is competitive and then making changes to it to take it to a different level, but I'm not the guy that's going to make something from scratch typically. Like I'm not a from scratch kind of guy. Now, I appreciate people like you and Sean McCabe who can build a deck from nothing and literally make it a meta deck that everyone is now copying, a big conversation starter, a top deck, whatever you want to call it. Like you guys are insane to me that you can even do that.
It's so funny too. Like I'm just like, even I remember like just driving home one day in my car and I'm like, I wish there was something good from Mausoleum. Like what could I summon with it? Like that's the one thing that's missing from this concept. And I got out of my car and I'm like, oh, okay. And Darkness Dragon, actually. I never thought I would actually use Light and Darkness Dragon in a deck. All right, I'll think about that one. And it's just a random moment. And from that point on, suddenly come to America for the rally for Nats, and like people are coming up to me telling me, oh yeah, I had to buy 3 copies of Retro Pack Light and Darkness Dragon just because you top with that deck.
See?
And that was just like an idea I had on the car journey home.
Yeah, you're very influential. You are very influential. Within this community, I think that you are one of the most influential just because your ideas, not only do they end up doing well in tournaments, but then the Frog channel seems to be the channel that pops the most. I don't know if that's a fact, but I feel like the Frog channel in Edison Format's Discord server, I think that one has the most traffic. Like I really do. I go on the other ones and that shit is like frogs are popping.
To your credit, the frogs, Roghnach, to your credit, the frog deck is the one that gets the most revisions. You know what I mean? Like Black Wings, it's not like there's like a 1,000 new Black Wings variations coming out. You know what I mean? Like Black Wings and like standard hero beat, like there's variations to it. Sometimes they play Absolute Zero, sometimes they don't. But for the most part, there's not brand new iterations of the decks coming out like a fucking burn Blackwing deck. That's not happening at a random tour. And maybe it could, I don't know. But it hasn't happened and hasn't been happening. Whereas there's a new fucking frog variant every other goddamn week, it seems like.
Let me interject real quick. It's funny you say that, Kenny. Burn Blackwings, because before Nationals, there was a tournament on Friday. And one of the people who got top 4 in that tournament.
You and Cairo played in it, right? And Cairo got second again?
Correct. So Frog Slicer was there in person, and he was playing a chain burn deck, but then it sided into Blackwings. and he made top 4 with it. Like he scraped a lot of people because, you know, the thought is Blackwings is very close to a burn deck in the way that it plays. It kind of expends its cards recklessly to do damage. So if you look at the Blackwing monsters as burn spells, like Boar is just a 1700 burn spell, right? Like you don't care about, oh, if I run it into like this card, you know, and it dies or whatever because alias attacked over, you don't care. If he did 17, he's a 1700 burn spell. And so if you play it like that, it's kind of cool. But I just think it's funny you brought up that exact like style, that exact deck, and that just happened. Now, granted, most people don't even know that deck exists or that it topped this tournament or did anything special. So it's a chance that later on down the line, we'll see something like that happen at an online tournament where the deck list will be posted and the whole community will know about it, but it's kind of under wraps right now. So you are still correct in what you're saying. Like Blackwings don't have a lot of variations. There's basically the most innovation I've seen in Blackwings this year is just adding Mistral, which I don't even agree with, and then like Legacy Yatagarasu, which I'm still on the fence about that too. Like those are the innovations that have happened with that deck in fucking years.
Yeah.
Frogs, on the other hand, have had like 10.
Further.
Oh, go ahead. Go even further with what?
Well, with the burn Blackwing idea, I think you actually could just expand it even further into like a chain burn kind of hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of has been done before, even like during the format. I'm pretty sure I've seen some lists like that.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I think that a lot of Blackwing players, including myself, because I do consider myself to be a Blackwing player as well, we just kind of like the way the deck plays normally and don't try to push the envelope too much. It's a very boring community. That's kind of why I partially left it, because I was playing it every week. And I kind of feel like I'm low-key responsible for killing my locals a little bit. My locals, every week, Kenny knows this, we have a group chat with like me and my core friends and everything, where every week I will post me getting packs from my locals, from either winning my locals or splitting top 4 or whatever. And this went on for months, like months straight of me just absolutely dominating with Blackwings and telling and preaching the Blackwing gospel. But the problem with that is, after people lose to the deck so much and I'm saying it's the best deck, it's the best deck, it's the best deck, they get discouraged to play whatever they were playing. Like I made anyone who's playing Quick Draw not want to play Quick Draw anymore.
Because part of the allure of Edison for like the part of the reason why everybody is like, oh, the idea that I can play whatever deck I want, you know, to a degree. There's a lot of variation to decks I can play. And it's if it ends up happening where it's like, oh, this is actually just a Blackwing format, then it's like, oh, well, then the reason why I wanted to play this format's not as interesting anymore.
Yeah. And so it sucks because the format is not Blackwing format still. And it never will be, because thankfully everyone likes to play whatever they want to play. But Blackwings is overpowered, and I was showing that. And I definitely think that a lot of people in my area got discouraged because it kind of killed our local scene. Like we don't really have an Edison local anymore. Like on Thursday nights, it used to be 30 to 40 people sometimes. And now we can barely get any for Edison. And it's just like, I think a combination of Hero Beat and Blackwings just bored people a little bit too much. And they're not willing. A lot of people aren't willing to learn other decks or learn how to innovate to combat what the meta is. So instead of figuring out ways to combat Blackwings and Hero Beat, they're just like, fuck this format, I'll just play Modern again. And that's kind of what happened. A lot of people who used to play on their side of the room are now playing Modern, because at the very least, Modern forces change. So I can't just be like, Blackwing's best deck every week, and then for a year straight, I'm dominating with Blackwings, and there's nothing you guys can do about it. It's like, well, I'll just play Modern, where the ban list will come out eventually. And no matter how good your tier elements deck is, that shit's going to get banned, which it did, and you won't be able to play it anymore. So I don't have to deal with your nonsense for like 2 or 3 months, and then Konami says, fuck off. But yeah, Edison.
I hope that won't be an issue for like modern, you know, the actual Edison tournaments. That, you know, I don't think it's going to be that centralized as it will be in your locals.
Yeah, it won't. Even look at, you can look at every tournament, right? They're also random. We had 2 weeks before Nationals where Dragons won both tournaments.
Yep.
There you go.
Dragon, and it was 2 different Dragon decks at that. So not even just 2 weeks of Dragon Turbo. It was 1 week of Trap Dragons and then 1 week of Dragon Turbo. And before that, you had your typical like Blackwings and stuff like that. You had the PS5 tournament won by Hero Frogs. You had the RBET in real life was won by, no, you had Diva Hero winning the PS5 tournament, and you had Hero Frogs winning the in real life RBET in California. So like all these different decks, Deck Devastators, and then Peak of the Beaks. There's just so many different decks that win. And then look at Nationals. Value Turbo won Nationals. There was an Amaryllis Plant Burn deck in Top Cut, in top 3 at that. Format's all over the place still. Like, to me, it is still very open-ended. You just have to have faith and heart in your deck. Like, you have to believe that your deck is good enough to get there, and that if you make the right build, make the right meta calls, make the right side deck choices, I think that your deck can just get there. You just have to really, try.
Yeah, luckily Blackwings aren't proving to be Meta Knight, where they just are the sole choice.
Right. It's not an IQ test like Meta Knight was.
A few years ago, I did think they would become that, but I'm so glad that they never were.
Last year, I was doom and gloom for me and my group. We all kind of started, like my one friend who's actually really good at Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel bad because I feel like I'm part of the reason why he also stopped playing Edison, but his name is Luke Feeney, and he's a great Yu-Gi-Oh player from the past. He's topped events and stuff like that. But he was playing, and then Black Wings were just dominating when we would play, and he kind of just stopped. He was like, I'm not a Black Wing player. I never will be. And if this is what Edison format is becoming, and at the time, the tops of every tournament was just like 5 Black Wings, 4 Black Wings, multiple Black Wings in top 4, multiple Black Wings, and it was just too much. And so it really did look like the doom and gloom of Black Wings was happening. So he just quit. And if he saw the format this year, I think it tells a very different story. And I would hope that a lot of people who gave up on the format because of that will come back and see what it is now. We're like, yeah, there is a lot of Hero Frogs and Black Wings still in Value Turbo. Those are like the 3 decks right now. Hero Beat, those are the 4 decks right now that are really like super popular. But I think even with them being popular, they're still other shit performing well, and you can still innovate and do things. So.
Like Christia Sworn.
Yes, that came out of nowhere. Yeah, and Roghnach is eventually going to top with a Christia Frog deck. That is going to happen. We're going to get a list.
I'm interested in that Machina Frog deck because I think the Machina engine's so cool. I just think gadgets are corny, but the Machina cards are like Gear Frame and fucking Fortress are fucking awesome. So
yes, and Extender. Like Fortress is an extender. You summon Monarch, they go negate Monarch or do something to Monarch, and you're like, okay, now summon Fortress. Now that you cleared the way for me. So love that.
Copies as soon as you can.
Sphere of Chaos. Roghnach he's holding up Sphere of Chaos, 2 copies of it. They're a secret rarity. They've only ever been printed once, right?
That's right.
Yeah. See me, I buy all common cards. You know what I mean? Like, how the fuck am I going to get a secret rare card? I can't do that.
Yeah, secret
I'm the common king.
Raging Battle Packs.
Yeah, no one has those. I might give it a
box. What the fuck?
Right. That box probably costs so much money now.
Jesus.
I know I could put my friend Xavier. He's a rare hunter. I could put him on the case and he can give me some Sphere of Chaoses, but at what cost is the thing? Like, I don't want to have to do that to him.
You know what's crazy? It is crazy just as a kind of side note, because you said how expensive that box would be. Retro boxes of cards are sometimes so much more egregiously priced than the cards that are in them. Like I was looking at base set Pokemon cards because I was interested in getting a full collection of all of the base set Pokemon cards. And some of the sets after that, like the first, like it's like base set, jungle set, fossil set. Because that I think covers all of the original 151 because they weren't actually all in the base set. So anyway, the point is, if you look at the price of all of the cards, some of them can be kind of expensive, but the price of all of the cards in base set is significantly lower than just buying one box. Like if you buy a box of base set, there's no point in opening it because there's not a card you can pull out of it that would like recoup the cost of just selling a sealed box of base set. Like the price of the box is so much higher than just the individual cards. It's insane.
Yeah, that is wild actually when you put it like that. And I've seen that too. And I've seen the unopened first edition boxes go for tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's like, whew.
So I've seen all types of stuff like that. And I know, like I said, Rownok is definitely responsible for some Yu-Gi-Oh! Black market editing where he's made cards go up in price. And he's been preaching about Teva a lot lately. So it's a Monarch-like card. When it's summoned, I think that your opponent can't enter their battle phase or something like that next turn.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's on summon. So would you say?
Oh yeah, like in the past, like I've just kept them to myself, like Turbo Cannon and like Sphere of Chaos and stuff, and I just wait until I actually do something with it in order to like spill the beans about it. But this time I'm doing an experiment and seeing how long it takes. If I just tell everyone right, like well in advance, I give them as much advance warning as they possibly want. I'm telling them like, this is the card. This is what I'm going to do next.
Yeah, like what happens?
See if they actually do it. Like. And so far, no one's bitten. So funny. I just find it hilarious.
Yeah, I'm looking on TCG Player right now as we're talking, and I just want to see how much Sphere of Chaos costs. And it's about $20 for some light played unlimiteds. I might actually cave. And get... Actually, I can get lightly played first edition for $22, basically. I might get 2 of these. I might just get 2 of these and hold them because I just don't want it to go further than this. And I thought that Ulti Caius wouldn't go further, and it really went way too far now. Like Ulti Caius is just absolutely egregious.
Caius is the card.
Caius is the card. It's like Spirit Chaos is no Caius. Obviously, I don't want to make a false equivalency, but like the point is that cards in Edison format have skyrocketed so much compared to when I got into it early last year.
Yeah,
like things have just gotten out of hand for sure. They've gotten out of hand.
It's still overall a cheap in quotations format, but
it is
now that it is actually a competitive format that is being recognized, the value of that specific era of cards has certainly increased.
Yes, and I guess more importantly is like you can, like you said, you can enter Edison format for cheap. I don't want people to listen to this and think that like Edison is an expensive format now. It is more expensive than it was last year, but the reality is you don't need to have, well, I'll speak for other people. You don't need to have shiny cards.
Yeah. When I got in the Edison
commons,
format, I bought all commons. Like I bought like you can get Dad's a common. Like
yes.
You can get Dad as a common.
Ryza and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can get common versions of all of these cards. Almost all of them. There's some cards that are like, but for the most part, you can find a cheap version of every single card. Like you don't have to buy the fucking fancy version.
Correct. So if you buy, like I always say, Edison decks either cost $50 or $5,000. And there's really no in between. It's like your deck is either going to cost 50 because you got it like really low rarity, or it's going to cost 5,000 because you maxed it out. And maxing out a deck is literally that expensive. Like actually,
it is always funny to show up to a locals, or especially to somewhere or like a tournament where people don't know you. It's just bring the most raggedy mat and the most damaged common versions of the cards that you can possibly get away with, and have your opponents underestimate you right from the get-go.
Yeah, I always wish that I could show up to a tournament with no sleeves and no mat.
Dude, I want to buy a propeller hat. One of those.
I don't remember, kid.
Yeah, I don't remember which podcast episode it was. I think it was with Chris Lynn, because I just put the clip up of it not long ago, but it had something to do with wearing a propeller hat and like choosing to go second, and you being like, you go first, and you're playing a go second deck. I don't remember, but it was something like that. I want to get a propeller hat.
They just think that you're a fucking scrub.
Mm-hmm.
Complete like the Calvin and Hobbes look with like your shorts and sneakers and your little wagon that you tow around.
Tiger. Okay, so I have a question for you. What's your favorite version of Frog so far that you've played?
Good question. I'm tempted to say Diva Frogs just because it's the one I've spent the most time on.
Okay, I see a lot of discussion about that one in the Frog channel.
Yeah, I haven't really come back to it in quite a long time, and by this point, I'm kind of like with my older decks, I'm at the stage where I feel like just like a grandparent or something, like handing it on to the next generation. That's basically what it is. Like other people who are now just like taking the Diva Frog deck and like playing it on my behalf. So like, for example, Pokey Rapper has been doing a lot of work with it. He does like a big series on his YouTube channel. Cam plays it a lot.
Yeah, Cam loves it. Well, he used to. Yeah. I don't know how he feels about it now after he just got deck devastated for everything.
Yeah, I think he'll be back. I think he's probably addicted to the highs and lows. But
yeah.
Yeah, like, and same for Hero Frog. Like, there's a million people now like taking Hero Frog in whatever direction they want. Like, certainly even in directions I would not take it myself. But I mean, they're still having success with it. So it's their thing now. So especially like the 3 people who did well in Nats, yourself included. There you go. Yeah. So that's me. That's my job done. I don't have to touch Hero Frogs if I don't want to. Like, if I want to come back to it anytime, I can. But
yeah,
I feel like that's a mission accomplished. So like, there's always a new Frog deck on the horizon. Like, it's my mission to keep this format as live and revitalized all the time as I can possibly make it. So why waste my time just doing things that other people are doing when I can make something and give people another reason to want to keep playing this format?
Yeah, that's true.
I want to see an all Frog top 8, but it's all a different variations of Frog.
That'd be so awesome. Cool. And on that day, Edison will be over. Like,
I wanted to ask, because I don't know if this has happened with any of your other Frog variations, but I know you were playing with. It was known that you had like a 60 card Frog hero deck that you eventually slimmed down to like 45 or something like that. I wanted to ask what I don't know, I guess what that process was like when you were playing the 60 card version. Did you feel like the 60 card version, or however many it was, had any merit, or did you always know you had to slim it down? All that shit.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about that a couple times during this conversation, because like, even that's basically the origin of Hero Frog as we know it today. I mean, you could trace it way back to like the end of 2010, because there was like one guy who had like a variant with duality or something. I've done a ton of research and I haven't found any trace of actual Hero Frog during the format itself, which kind of it checks out, because Absolute Zero was like 2 weeks old at that point.
Yeah, and the format was technically a weekend.
Yeah, I think like Hero Frog is technically quite old, but in terms of Edison format Hero Frog, like, I don't know anyone else who made it apart from me. So if you want to see the very first Hero Frog deck, it's basically that one. Has like 54 cards with 3 Polymerization, 3 King of the Swamp, Wild Heart.
Oh man,
what else did it have in it? All this, double Mally, obviously. Like oh my gosh, what was even in it? Do you remember? Like so much crazy stuff.
Yeah, I do not remember, but I know what you're referencing. I don't know what was in it because as soon as I see a deck with that many cards, I ever think to myself, okay, this is going to be a funny thing for content purposes, or it's just like a mess.
Fraser leaving out the fact that he topped with a 56 card deck.
Listen, okay, we don't have to bring that up right now.
A grass deck, or is it a real?
So back in 2016, I think it was, I topped the YCS with a 52 card Metal Foe Magispector homebrew that I made. Like I literally made something called Metal Specters, and it was using this card called Ties of the Brethren that says target a guy on your side of the field and then summon 2 monsters from your deck that have the same, I think it's like the same attribute or something in common with that card, or the same type and attribute. So it's called Ties of the Brethren. So basically you would summon Bunbuku, which was a 3-star monster that searched on summon. Like if you normal summoned or special summoned it, it searched on summon. And then you play Ties of the Brethren and it would special summon 2 more Metal Spectre monsters that also on summon search cards. So it was just an insane interaction because you basically went like plus, I don't know, 3, I think, from that interaction, because you lose Ties of the Brethren, but then you get 2 guys that get 2 cards. So you get 4 cards total from activating it. So yeah, it's a plus 3 from just that one interaction. It's actually crazy what that card did. And that was the idea behind it. It was one of my only homebrew decks that I ever made. I guess Dragoonies was another one, but that one was like truly innovative. And I couldn't get it down to the 40 cards because I didn't really play test much. I just kind of played against Shu Ping a lot. And I said to myself, he was like, do not play this deck. I was like, I'm playing it. Like, do not play this. I was like, I'm fucking playing. He's like, do not play this deck. I was like, I'm fucking playing it. So yeah, I ended up playing a 50-something card Metal Foe Magispector homebrew. And yeah, good times. Good times. Are you still there?
Yeah, I was going to. Oh, hello there. Oh, he's back.
Oh, there you are.
Yes. Hello.
You left for a second. I don't know what happened. But yeah, so I've definitely done some home brewing, but you did have at one point, like you were saying, a 50 plus card hero deck, and then it's been refined down to like the 40 cards that you ended up topping RBET. I think it was 2 that last year, RBET 2, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I love frogs, as I've said. You have a ton of different builds, and apparently 5 new ones just today. That's just crazy. Okay, so let's pivot to this, because you're a school teacher in real life, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So what made you choose that as a career choice / passion?
It was that in university, I studied European studies. I got to learn French and Spanish. And so I got to travel to Spain to learn Spanish. And then after my degree, traveled to France to be an English language assistant. And so I got to have a bit of experience, especially during the pandemic, when all the teachers had to, well, some of them, because of health reasons, weren't able to come back to school. So I was taken in as like a sub teacher. That was my very first experience teaching. And I just learned that like all of the things that I always wanted to do as a teacher, like, you know, getting a lot of interactive games, using like YouTube videos and songs and speaking activities, and just in general, like making people actually have to work for using the language rather than just sitting back and doing a bunch of grammar exercises. And I figured like that actually does work, and it does work. So there you go. That's what made me want to start starting the formal process of getting the qualifications and all that kind of stuff.
Interesting. Now, I know a lot of teachers, especially ones that are nerds like us, they tend to be pretty cool for kids who are growing up who are into things that are not sports and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, do your kids in your classrooms, do they know that you like Yu-Gi-Oh? Do they know that you play Yu-Gi-Oh?
A few of them do, because especially those that are in the chess club, they might have seen a couple of my videos here and there, or like there's even a couple students who've gone to, say, like the Irish national competition, that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. But one thing that I do, and I actually have the cards here, and for example, I did this as I was leaving the school on my very last day. I had a colleague of mine. He knows that I play Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. He was really excited to show me all these all his cards that he had as a kid from the base set. Pokemon cards, and, he was asking me, "Oh, is there anything worth like $1,000 that's like so insane?" No, there wasn't. But instead, what I did is I handed out one of these to every kid, and I just I signed each one of them, saying something like in French or Spanish, like "Gracias por todo el trabajo de este año," or "Thanks for all the work this year." Yep, something like that. And so it's just a fun thing. You can always incorporate your hobbies into your work, especially as a teacher.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's really cool. I feel like you would be a good teacher. Like I've met you. You're a very inviting person and very endearing. You tend to smile a lot, which I think is cool because a lot of people, including myself, have like resting bitch face. So when you see us in person, people sometimes are afraid to approach, but you are very approachable in real life, and that's pleasant. But also for the fact that you're a teacher, I think it helps that you are very approachable and stuff. And it's good that you do find a way to incorporate one of your passions being Yu-Gi-Oh into your classroom in any way. Like even if it is just passing around cards at the end of the year or whatever, or telling your students how you just creamed this tournament with this new frog deck that nobody saw coming and it was amazing.
Yeah, they're impressed actually because I won $200 from that Hero Frog event last year.
Oh,
And,
damn.
Oh, that's awesome.
let's say that anyway. It's not just a card game; it's actually it's a money game.
Yeah, sometimes we get some money, and that's definitely true.
On the note of incorporating your hobbies into being a teacher, it's just reminded me of this Reddit thread I saw a while ago where this teacher, I don't remember what subject it was, but have you guys heard of the fighting game Guilty Gear? So
Maybe.
it's just a fighting game like Street Fighter or Tekken, whatever. But basically, one of the older versions of Guilty Gear, this teacher started to use it as like an incentive, and so after class, he would play Guilty Gear with his students and let all of his students play Guilty Gear and have tournaments and stuff. And they have these students had zero knowledge of the game, have never heard of it, and like didn't look anything up online. So they would just play, and it created like this 26 students. They created kind of their own meta, and every month he would make the students create a tier list for the game based on like the kids that are playing it and stuff. And it was really cool. So he would post like his students tier list on Reddit
that's really cool.
And talk about like how they think. And it's funny because like some characters, like the student that was like the best using a character or whatever that was beating all, they would say like this character's top tier, but in reality, like in the actual Guilty Gear community, that character is actually like kind of mid tier. He's not the best. He just has something that's kind of exploitable that he's getting over on people. And it was like really cool to watch. I think this teacher made like maybe 3 or 4 Reddit posts or whatever, and it was cool to watch like the progression of the tier list and his students getting better at the game. And he incorporated that into whatever subject he was doing. I don't remember what, but it was kind of cool. Your story reminded me of reading about that.
I'm to think of it now. You mentioned that. It reminded me that there actually is a Yu-Gi-Oh club in a school that's maybe an hour down the road from me. Gotta suggest that to him. Of like even like Yugi Kaiba format, or like maybe Goat format, or even Edison format, if they could get into that, see what they come up with.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Stuff like that's really cool. Like when I was in school, we kind of, I remember we created a video game club. Like there was all these different clubs, and video game club was not on the school's radar, but we were able to get one created, and then we were able to get a teacher to like monitor the club, and then it kind of quickly became a melee club where we would all play Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Of course.
And we had like 5 set. I had like 3 GameCubes on my own, and I would bring all 3 GameCubes to school, and then like a couple other people brought a couple, and we would just have melee tournaments and like run melee all the fucking time. And every now and then I'd bring my PS2 and do Budokai 3. But yeah, it was really fun.
Cool, being the host of the whole thing. 3 GameCube.
Yeah. I went nuts for GameCubes. Fraser knows. I left
a GameCube.
Yeah, I left the GameCube at his house or at the time his apartment.
Yeah.
For a long time because I just had so many games because I was in the melee so much, and everywhere I went I wanted there to be a melee scene. It's kind of funny. Fraser was saying that his local for Edison kind of died, but recently in one of the podcast episodes he said he's been going there and playing Smash Ultimate.
I've been taking it to locals just to play Smash. I've been going to locals to play Smash Bros.
What's so funny to me about that is for years I used to like beg and ask the owner of Alternate Universe if I could bring in GameCubes to host like little melee tournaments and little melee there, and he would just say no every time. He would just be like, he would just not be with it.
It's so wild that was a thing.
Yeah, he just would not let me bring it, and then I was just so sad about it. But anywhere I went or any place I would gather, I would try to like get specifically melee going because GameCubes were easy to transfer. They even had a little handle, and they were pretty small. But yeah, I had 3 GameCubes, and I would set them up anywhere I could to get people playing some melee.
Yeah, melee is the shit.
Kind of related to Okwan.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was saying melee is the shit.
Yeah, and I think like the fact that those tournaments are taking off is very similar to how Edison is taking off, and I'd give 3 reasons for that. Because I think by now the nostalgia is building.
Yes,
one thing. So first thing from melee, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, melee died briefly when Brawl came out, but since then has come back and has like been going strong. Has huge tournaments still. Yeah, melee is still very much played.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
past weekend there was a huge tournament for Melee. Actually, what was it called? Get on My Level. I think it was Get on My Level. Really, it was a super major. So people from all different countries. One guy came from Japan, and actually more than one guy. For Melee, there was one main guy from Japan, but for Ultimate, there were several people from Japan, people from Europe, people from obviously Southern America, North America, all that stuff. But yeah, Melee is huge. Smash in general is very big. Do you actually play any games outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, Roghnach?
I used to play Pokemon a lot, but certainly not competitively. So yeah, the only competitive game that I play is definitely Yu-Gi-Oh.
Okay,
Or chess,
yeah.
I guess technically, but not even only just like on a very casual level, like
Yeah, you're not a
like a
master or whatever,
local.
right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I know Cam is trying to become a master.
Yeah, and Pro Storm actually. If you're into chess, hit up Pro Storm because he's extremely good.
Okay, I'm not surprised. He's one of those hardcore thinkers, likes to take his time and think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
So
was going to say as well, the fact that we're also financially secure, that's definitely a big thing about Melee tournaments, all that kind of stuff. We're able to just drop all this money on this game, and just we know that, it's been there for a while. And yeah, that's basically the third thing, that we know it's going to stick around for Edison. Like, it's been around this long, hasn't gone away. I think we're pretty certain that it's going to stick around for a while longer.
yeah, and the fact that Konami picked it up is big too. The fact that they're doing these Ultimate Time Wizard tournaments, I hope they do more. I hope that they start doing these at YCS, because that would be great.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, Edison format, I think, is in a safe place. Even if it doesn't get any bigger, so to speak, or whatever,
Right,
even
like
if it
with
gets a little
Konami.
bit smaller,
Yeah.
it's in a pretty safe place, I think, somewhere to GOAT format, where it'll always be a format that people know about and be like, oh, you want to try playing this or whatever. So,
Yeah,
but I do think it'll probably continue to grow, because I think that interest in it is only growing as more and more people realize that it's kind of a secured format and that it's not going away at this point, and there's big tournaments for it. There was just nationals for it. So, well, it was just at nationals. So yeah, I think it still is going to grow more going forward.
Yeah, it seems like it's definitely going to keep growing. New decks somehow keep coming out, which is always a surprise to me. But I love the innovations that are being made in the format. I literally last year thought that the format might be over, and I was proven very wrong. So I'm happy about that, because Edison got me back into Yu-Gi-Oh! I wasn't going to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore, and I had retired for like 6 years, and Edison got me back in to a degree. And then I was like a little sad at the end of last year when there was just so much, of the same deck doing well. And I thought, and my local scene started to slowly die out and stuff. So I was like, oh, this format is starting to go away. So I need to just let it go. And then I'm back to retirement. But this year, honestly, like for me, has been really good, just successfully. And then also it seems like the community loves it. And then we decided to start doing a lot more content for Yu-Gi-Oh! On our YouTube channel, and it's grown to YouTube. Now we're at around 1,600 subs. By the time you're hearing this, we'll definitely be over 1,600 subs. And I can't believe how many we've gotten starting from like March of 2020.
Yeah, it was awesome, because like I remember us like every day kind of tracking getting to 1,000.
Yeah.
And so now it feels very possible that like 2,000's on the horizon and shit.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, and it's really nice being in the YouTube monetization program and stuff like that. Also, I remember, Rownok, you were talking about starting a YouTube channel at some point a while ago.
Oh my gosh, yes. I have so many ideas.
That needs to happen, because you are a very creative mind. I think that you would bring something fresh and different to the table, and which is kind of what every YouTube channel should be. Like, everyone should be bringing something fresh and in their own perspective. I think that the most important thing I can impart to people who want to do content creation is just be yourself. Only you are you. So whatever you feel, whatever you say, the way you act is unique to everyone else. Like Keegan, E3 Yu-Gi-Oh!, they have their channel and they do what they do. And then you have Carpath, and you have A True Hero, you have me, you have Beast Mode, and many, many more. Crow's Nest, Edison Club. We're all different. And there's room for everybody. And I think that you would be no different in that, in the sense that you would fit right in, where people would say, okay, I got to watch Fraser's video, then I got to watch Rownok's video, then I got to watch E3's video, and then I got to watch Beast Mode's. Like, you would be right in that whole little circle of content creators. But
I want to also just randomly say, because I know, I don't know if it happens, but I know a lot of people hate on Keegan. And I want to say, just from my perspective, he's always very welcoming to new content creators in the Edison scene. And like, he seems like he really wants the format to grow. And yeah, I don't know. He's always really welcoming to the Edison scene. He was really welcoming to us and A True Hero. I don't know. He's a cool guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Keegan. I met him for the first time at Nationals, and he was very pleasant. He also invited me and Cairo / A True Hero to stay with him at the In Real Life RBET in Moreno Valley in California next month. So I will be in California. I actually booked my flight and everything. So I'll be in California in August. For the third time this year, I will be in California, which is fucking... Bro, I feel like every other month Kenny has to hear me talk about I'm going to Cali. God. It's crazy.
For real. And every time I'm just waiting for another white girl to steal his shit.
Bro, the PTSD I still have from getting, because I always check my bag. So baggage claim is always going to be a thing for me. I have PTSD from that. And every time I go to Cali, I am nervous that my bag might not fucking be there because of that one situation that happened so long ago. But yeah.
Sounds like story time.
Yeah, well, I've told it before in this thing, but like I went to Cali, I checked the bag, and I got to the carousel for baggage claim. And when my bag was coming around to me, I'm standing there and there's a white girl down the line. She's a little further than me. So the bag goes to pass her first, and she grabs what I think is my bag, lifts it up off the carousel, and like starts to walk out of the airport with it. So while I'm watching her, I'm saying to myself, okay, that bag that I have is a bag that a lot of people have because it was a black Samsonite luggage. It looks very similar to a lot of other luggages that you might have seen. It has a very unique look, but it's not so unique that other people can't have it. It's fucking, one is the color black. It had no branding on it whatsoever in terms of like stickers or anything that says this is yours. So from my perspective and from probably her perspective, it just looks like her bag or my bag. So she's walking out with it and the carousel stops. No more bags are coming out. So now I'm getting fucking nervous because all my friends are standing there and they all have their bags already. So they're like, yo, where's your bag at? And I'm like, bro, I don't know. The carousel, nothing else is coming out. So I'm like, yo, what the hell happened? Did my bag get left in Philly? Like, what's going on? So then I decide to walk outside of the airport and this girl was still just like walking around with the bag. And it looks like she's waiting for Uber or something. So I walk up to her and I'm like, excuse me, do you have the right bag? Because I feel like this is my bag. And she's like, what? And I'm like, is that your bag? Or is that like, are you sure that that's your bag, basically? And she looks really confused. And she's like, I think so. And so as soon as she said, I think so, I like grabbed the tag on the bag, because luckily they do have those on there. And it says Smith Fraser on it. So I was like, oh, this is my bag. So I like grabbed the handle from her and like just yoinked the bag. And I'm like, yeah, this is my bag. And I like unzipped it a little bit just to be 100% sure that I wasn't crazy. I unzipped the bag at the top and I like reached in.
Her name was Fraser.
Oh my God. Could you imagine? So I like reached in to grab something out of it and I grabbed the t-shirt and the t-shirt still had the tag on it and everything. And I was like, this is literally my bag. So I just wanted to like, for no reason at all, I kind of proved to her that it was my bag, even though she definitely knew that it was my fucking bag. So I like walked back into the airport.
Like, look, I've got Balenciaga lotion in here.
That's what it was, a Balenciaga t-shirt with the tag on it. It was a Balenciaga t-shirt, literally with the tag still attached to it. And when I walked back into the airport, my friends were standing there like, what happened? I was like, that fucking girl had my bag. She was going to fucking steal my bag. And they were like, that's actually crazy, bro. And I was like, yes, she was going to steal my fucking bag. And if she got in an Uber, I would have been down like $20K because I had my camera in there. My camera's like $5,000. I had all this shit in there. I was freaking out. I was absolutely freaking out about that situation. So every time I go to Cali, which is now, since that happened, has been 5 times since that happened. Every time I go, I get really, really nervous. So yeah, I get the baggage claim really quick and I Hawkeye. And my bag now is plastered with stickers that are only me all over. So
that's how it's done.
Yeah.
I always bring it on carry-on luggage just for that reason.
I know, man. I should do that. But the problem is I like to bring a lot of toiletries with me, a lot of things that like skincare, hair care, all this stuff that I basically bring my entire bathroom when I travel, which is like, I'm such a prima donna, but I bring my own Dove body wash. I bring my loofah, I bring my electric toothbrush. I bring all my lotions and creams and all this bullshit. And like that stuff in the past has gotten thrown away by TSA, which infuriates me that they just throw your shit away like that. So I have to check a bag every time I travel. And it's definitely led to this one situation that has given me anxiety every time I do it, but whatever. It is what it's just going to be a part of my life now. Cause forever, for the rest of my life, I'm always going to think about that one time that this lady almost got $20K from me. Mm-hmm. And now I try not to pack as expensive anymore because of that also. Like I bring my camera in my carry-on bag instead of checking my camera because I'm like, fuck that. If I'm going to have 5K in one item, it needs to be on my person. I can't just have it in the bag.
Actually, on a related note, and I guess, like on the topic of bringing so much expensive stuff everywhere, because I certainly did bring a lot of expensive stuff in that, and everyone was remarking that there's basically no one stealing anymore.
Yes, I won't say that there's no one stealing anymore because I don't know for a fact, but it is true that the amount of theft in the community is way lower than when I was playing competitively. Not that those two things are linked. But there's a lot less theft now in the Yu-Gi-Oh community than there was like 10 years ago. And I think that's a great thing because I always found it to be a little unpleasant that we're known as a community of thieves amongst other card game players. Like, for example, at Gen Con every year, the best 4 days in gaming, Magic the Gathering has some very expensive events like legacy events and vintage events. And those decks are, some of them can actually be 100K. So, because they have Power 9 in them, like actual Power 9. If you don't know what Power 9 is, look it up. But so some of those decks can be $100,000. Some of those collections are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in the past, they have been stolen by members of the Yu-Gi-Oh community. And that, you know, I don't like having that connotation associated with us. So I'm glad that that stigma is kind of like not as big of a thing anymore. If it's eradicated, that's great. I don't want to just assume that it is right now, but I didn't hear of anyone, at least in the Edison scene at Nationals that just passed, having their whole deck or bag stolen. Like that used to be a thing that happened in the past a lot. I kind of forgot because it hasn't happened in so long.
I think it's kind of because we're all so much, I don't want to say mature because not everyone is mature, but you know, our brains are developed past 25.
Yes.
And we have more of a prefrontal cortex and less of a risk factor there.
Yeah, that's true.
Cognitive going on.
I do think that there's something to be said about like the community now is older. I'm way older than I was when I was playing. Obviously, that's just how time works. But my mind has definitely changed on a lot of things. Like for me, the growth that I've had has been in my attitude, especially towards losing. Like I'm able to take losses way better than I used to when I was younger. I was very much a big sore loser as a younger, teenager / adult. And now, like, sure, I don't want to lose. I'm not happy about losing. I'm never going to be like smiling when I lose, but I'm also not going to be fucking toxic about it either. In terms of just like the way I talk to my opponent, I won't be unpleasant to my opponent for top decking a card, for getting lucky or whatever. I will not just lash out because that happened. I literally have had people top deck brain control with no cards and they won the game because they just drew the one card that could do that. And that, it happens, and I just take it as it is. But in the past, not so much. In the past, I would definitely be more of a Cameron Saunders about it. Let's just say that. Now I love Cam, but he's young. He's younger, so he has his moments. Have you dabbled in modern at all? Like modern Yu-Gi-Oh?
I'm considering it actually now. There's a couple decks that I'm thinking are especially right now because there's a new philosophy they're building around, which is not as much Omni Negates, which I just hated. It's like you have to wait 5 minutes and they set up like 5 or 6 Omni Negates, and did you magically draw the out or not? I don't know. You did or you didn't, and that's the game. Whereas now it's actually like they're making it more interactive with a lot more cards that stuff on your opponent's turn the very first turn, for example. Like there's the Rescue Ace deck that does that. There's even now there's like some Fire King support, which really interests me a lot. And there's even some cards that do stuff on your opponent's turn before, like just during their main phase. You get to play back and forth while they're playing, as opposed to just waiting for 5 minutes.
Right.
That kind of thing. Like it actually has more potential now, I think, than in the past few years. Actually develop into a game that's back and forth and skill based and grindy. So the more it develops like that, the more I'm more likely to join the modern game. Yeah,
more intrigued by it. That's interesting. So most decks, not most, but some decks are becoming more like Tear Elements, because Tear Elements was a deck that played on both players' turns. Literally, the game would unfold on both players' turns. And maybe Konami saw that and was like, you know what? Maybe this is the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe turns are just a formality, right? Turns are just a draw phase in a battle phase. But at the end of the day, both players should be playing on both turns, even as early as turn 1. Because we did go through a dark age, and not me, but y'all be safe. They went through a dark age where people were winning on turn 1, and they had to watch their opponent play for, you said 5 minutes, but it was more like 10. I'm just going to put that out there. Geez. People literally would take 10 minutes. I watched it happen a lot, and I watched people go fast and take 10 minutes, okay? I watched Aaron Furman at a regional in Philly when, what's that deck? The Thunder Dragon deck was around, and there was like the Goki deck. I watched him literally move extremely fast, and he still took 7 to 8 minutes turn 1 to do his turn 1 play. And I just said to myself, there's no fucking way this is okay, because as fast as he's going, I know people go way slower, so their turns are going to take 10 to 12 minutes. And it's just like, how is that fair? And how is that fun? Like multiple questions and layers there, but
I don't get it, honestly. Yeah. The game is really popular now, and honestly,
it is.
I don't understand it.
I think we had the biggest nationals of all time this past 2 weeks ago, right? Like I think it was 3,000 people. I think that was the biggest nationals of all time. So yeah, the game is as big as it's ever been. and it will only continue to grow, it seems. But people like it, and I just tell people I don't necessarily hate anyone who plays it or shit. I don't want to shit on their game. It's just a different game to me. It's just not the same as what I'm playing. Like when I'm playing Edison and when people are playing Modern, I feel like we're just playing two different games that just share the same name.
There are some decks that. Oh, yeah, go on.
I was gonna say that's all we really have in common is the name. Go ahead. You said there are some decks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like there are some decks that are like when they go up against each other, actually produce some really, really spectacular back and forth, like 10-turn grind games where you have to really plan your resources out.
Right.
What kind of stuff? Like I've seen like Paleo Frogs versus Plunder Patrol, that kind of thing. Like those are both very control style, resource based. Like they can really just go on forever if you let them. So that's very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, I like the Paleo deck. I like you said the Patrol deck, the Pirates. Our friend Chris Lynn, he is an advocate of that deck. I think he might have just topped a YCS with it too. He just topped a remote YCS. I'm not sure if it was with the. I almost wanted to call it Paw Patrol, but he topped the YCS. I think it was with that deck, and I know that he's been working on it for a while now. It's been out for over a year, but they keep getting support, and the support keeps getting more fucking ridiculous. Every time I read the cards, I'm like, these cards are insane. The fact that it's not a tier 0 deck is just testament to how powerful the game of Yu-Gi-Oh has gotten. But yeah, I like that they're interactive. To your point, those decks are actually control decks. They played the game as opposed to just like straight up winning turn one.
Yeah, I'd love to see more decks like that where, I don't know, like it's just very clear that at the end of it, the better player has won. Like you just really had to know every single interaction inside out. There was so much complex stuff happening, flying around. But at the same time, like your deck got to do so much, you got to participate so much in the game. And like it wasn't just ending on Omni Negates every turn and just praying that they had the no out. Like you actually had to really drag it out. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good thing. Okay, so I think that we can start to wrap this up now. I want to say this. So you're the captain of Ring of Destruction, our team. Are you the founder as well? Are you a co-founder of the team?
No, that was Randage.
Randage. Okay, so how did you and him come about to start this team together? Or like, how did you come onto the team once he started it? Like, how did this whole thing come about?
It started as a GOAT team. So Randage was trying to get a bunch of chill people who were kind of a little bit under the radar and just people he could, well, under the radar, I'd say. Like he started with like HAT and he started with like NB96 and all these people who are like obviously known names. Mm-hmm. All at the same time, like, just getting a team together that was obviously going to be very durable and not going to be drama based and just very serious about testing all that kind of stuff. And that's absolutely basically what it is. So then me personally, he just recognized that I was doing my own thing. I was, at that time I was known as an Edison player just for Diva Frog, but I had been just randomly testing on ladder with Earth Aggro at the time. And he's like, oh, how are you doing with that? I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I just won like 26 out of my last 28 games on ladder. I know it's only like DB or whatever, but it seems pretty good. And he's like, Jesus, that's actually like, wow, that's kind of insane. Like we might even sign you now just because we feel like it's a good time for that. And yeah, lo and behold, a week later, I got first placed in the FLC 19. It's really funny. With a totally new, again, like from scratch deck in GOAT format. And even to this day, there's people topping with that deck, which is really funny. I love that.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I had no idea about this part of your story.
Yeah, so I am a GOAT player too. Like I certainly started retro formats with GOAT around 2016. And then it was only 2018 that I started Edison. And that was because at my local scene, there's still a group of guys that we hang out and play all kinds of retro formats. But yeah, they've been playing Edison for a long time. So I was kind of late to the party in 2018, which is funny because, I feel like I've been around for ages. But yeah, where we've been playing in Dublin, it's just been a big thing forever.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, you're definitely one of the people who I think made Edison format help to make it as popular as it is now, because I feel like without you, frogs would be, I don't know where the fuck they would be actually. Maybe we would all just be doing frog slicer stuff until our brains explode. But you are the main person who pushed the deck, and now like I've taken it this year and pushed it even further. And now it's to the point where I feel like frogs are more popular than they've ever been. Like I don't recall ever seeing 3 frogs in the top of any tournament actually. So I feel like now frogs are just getting maybe a bit out of hand. Like maybe it's now people who normally would not play that deck are deciding to try it out. And it all starts from like you showing us the way, and then people taking the ball and just rolling it down the hill.
That's right. Really and it's not going to stop anytime soon. No,
it's not. I'm glad the deck is getting the respect it deserves, because there are people who are naysayers and think that frogs are overrated, which is ridiculous, because I don't understand how you could read Substitute and read Swap Frog and read Treeborn Frog and say this is overrated. I just don't know how your brain could arrive at that conclusion. But, it is what it is. These people who say things like that just are not really smart. Anyways, all right. So before we get out of here, I want to give you a chance to, if you want to shout anybody out or do anything, I'm about to get the Patreon people together.
Let me think. Yeah, I'll just shout out Team Ring of Destruction. All the great people there. I'll shout out Keegan, shout out all the organizers of the Nats event, and certainly shout out the next events coming up for Moreno Valley in August. I think it's August 6th, could be wrong, and October. So I'm going up to Orlando in October, be at that one. So yeah, and shout out to everyone I met at Nats, all the people I met from trading and selling I'd done before. I got to meet in person. All the great people from I met in California that time, like all the Crow's Nest people, like Carpath and Fitz, and Murray, and well, Murray's not Crow's Nest, but all the people I met from online. So it's great to finally be able to meet these people in person this year, and just to just be a part of this emerging scene as it's growing.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So as you guys know, we have a Patreon, and there are currently 62 active members. Thank you guys so much for the support. We appreciate it. And as always, I'd like to read out the names of the 62 people. I guess I read out like 50 of them. And yeah, you guys have been rocking with us some of you have been rocking with us for the longest time. So shout out to you guys especially, and then to our newest people. But without further ado, we have Connie. Ronathan kept scrumming in side event finals. Leon, Stardust Dragon Assault Mode gave me PTSD. Xavier, Hylian, Dimitri Barnes, Volvi knows a spot in the woods. Dominic Roberts, Giovanni Avalos, Alex Flamer, Andre Reynolds. Okay, hold on. Then we got Dan Vrabel, First to Home, S. Akuma, Mitchell Nels, Midwest Gaming, William Shapiro, Dimitri Safirdas, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey. I wouldn't want to play me at full power either. That one is so good. That one is so good. Who is that? I don't even know who that is. I wouldn't want to play me at full power either. Is so good. Just because of the history of that. If you don't know from my infamous match with Billy Break. We got Roz Weiss, Nick Stengel, Hunter, our two-time national champion. Ka-chan is a poorly written character. Sarah Maria, Sunny Top Cut Podcast, Alex Ahern, Philip Campa, Jalen Haskins, Chris Lynn, Wookie 159, MSW 2389, Kyle Botelho. I'm not a hot pot, but I'm a chubby. I'm not a hot pot, but I am chubby. Okay, there we go. I got it. Sugal, Nick, Mr. Saltide, Nafa, Corey Fowler, Vicky Venomon. I like that one. Vicky Venomon, Elijah Barfoth, and then
a true hero, Tyler Tadeo, Volvi, the Mega Monarch. Big Stinky, Duty Booty, Adam Corey, and
Rage. Knowing you'll read them out.
Enraged Peacock, Leo Bacani, Janitor 215, James A, Thomas Rude, Joshua Carroll, Steve Rogers, Wayne Trader, Eric Chai, Finesse Kid, Tim Amaya, Owen Tedford, and Jeff Strain.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. I hope you're enjoying the content that we put up, not only early, but also exclusive content like our monthly episodes that you can only get on Patreon. There are over 20 of them now since we've been podcasting for 2 years, and we've been doing a monthly exclusive episode for Patreon ever since. So there's definitely over 20 of them. If you have any suggestions for podcasts that you would like to hear us talk about, please give them to us. We recently just watched the movie Starship Troopers because that was in our podcast suggestions channel in our Discord server. So we took that and literally watched a movie with the intent that we're going to do a podcast on Starship Troopers, and probably related to like shooting games and stuff like that, and just space games, because ultimately it is that genre. So yeah, we look forward to doing that episode. So check that out in the future. And yeah, you can also get other exclusive benefits on our Patreon, like a deck doctor thing. If you want to do Master and a Pupil with me, if you want to come on the podcast and be a guest, there's all types of stuff that we have. So just check out IMNerd Podcast, not Discord, our Patreon. And yeah, if you have any suggestions or stuff like that, please write into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com. If you have a listener letter, something you want to ask, Rownok, or ask me or Kenny, write into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com. We'll read it aloud on the show. And I think that's, go ahead.
If you somehow happen to have any random connections for cool people for us to interview to be on the podcast that would want to be on, like, because in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh, I think through Fraser, we can kind of get most of that. But yes, if you randomly know like a fucking Star Trek player or something, I don't know, just like a really good player or whatever, someone from a community, Melee, maybe you're best friends with Mango and you're like, Mango, you want to go on this podcast? Sure. But yeah, if you want to hook us up with a connection because you want to see us interview somebody on the podcast like we do with all of our esteemed Yu-Gi-Oh guests, let us know.
Yeah, no, that's very real. I'm glad you said that, Kenny. If you, yeah, I would like to have guests on here who are not necessarily just Yu-Gi-Oh players. Sometimes, like that would be really cool to just get a myriad of different types of people. And it would be even great if they're also part of the nerd community, but just a different nerd community maybe. Than Yu-Gi-Oh. That would be really, really cool. So yeah, if you guys have recommendations on that type of thing, I agree with Kenny. Please send them to us. All right. Well, as I always say, guys, do the things that make you happy. Thank you so much, Rownok, for coming on this episode.
Thank you.
And letting everybody
Pleasure.
know how to officially pronounce your name and the origin of it. Optional.
They'll still get it wrong.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got it wrong a couple times in this episode. I noticed. I was like, oh shit, I just said it wrong. So I even after hearing it and saying it correctly, I still struggle with that name. But you know what? It's a skill issue. As I always say, guys, do the things that make you happy, including having on the Frog God on your podcast. This definitely made me happy.
Thanks so much.
Ribbit.
We're out. Peace.